I'm Jennifer, and in this video I'll be playing the slow etude for Maryland's Junior All-State Audition. It's from the Advanced Rubank book, Volume 1, page 32, number 11, top line only. So I'm going to go ahead and play it through without repeats, and then if you stick around I'll give you some tips on how to practice. So that's it. In my opinion, the slow etude is definitely harder than the fast etude this year. So I think it will require a little bit more work on everyone's part. Now, the worst part about this etude is the counting. And I know you're probably all sitting there and thinking, you're crazy. The worst part is the high F. And the high F is definitely hard, but what you have to remember is that that's just one note in the entire etude. And we're gonna get that one note, but it's not the end all of the entire piece. So we're gonna start back at the beginning and learn how to count some of these tricky rhythms. So this piece is in 6/8. And for those of you who haven't played in 6/8 before, that means there's 6 beats in a measure and an eighth note gets a beat. So basically, if you're comparing it to 4/4, you're doubling all the rhythms that you already know. An eighth note gets 1 beat, a quarter note gets 2, a dotted quarter note gets 3 beats, and so on and so forth. So if we look at the first full measure of music, so we can forget about the A, the first A. We start with a quarter note slurred to an eighth note. So we would just count that 1, 2, 3. The quarter note would get 2 counts, 1, 2, and the eighth note would get another 1. And then we have a dotted eighth note, which is a little tricky, but we're gonna break it down here. So a dotted eighth note in 6/8 is a beat and a half, 1.5 beats. Now in this case, it starts on beat 4. So we count it 4 and 5. And then the A afterwards, the 16th note, is on the and. So it goes 4 and 5 and then we know we have to have 6 beats in the measure. So our last eighth note, the G sharp, is on beat 6. So if we're counting that first measure, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and 6. And it will sound like this. It will sound like that if I don't have spit in my B flat key. Let's try that again. Better. So not too bad. And luckily that rhythm comes back other places in the etude. So if you learn it once, you have it for the rest of the piece as well. Now, another tricky measure is the fourth full measure, the last measure of the first line. And we're gonna figure out how to count that, and we're gonna go backwards. So if we look at it, the A, the last note of the measure, is on beat 6. It's 1 beat because it's an eighth note. And if we look before it, we have a quarter note D. So that needs 2 beats, and that means it will be on beats 4 and 5. So there we have the end of the measure, half the measure already done. 4, 5, 6. Now the beginning of the measure, we have another dotted eighth note. So that's a beat and a half. So we would count that 1 and 2. And then we have our 16th will be the next and. So 1 and 2 and 4, 5, 6. You see I was quiet on beat 3. On beat 3 is where we have that triplet. So we need to fit 3 notes in the span of the 1 beat. And what you can do to sort of help yourself is say the word strawberry in your mind, or triplet. They both have 3 syllables to them. So if we were counting out this measure, we would go 1 and 2 and triplet 4, 5, 6. Again, it would be 1 and 2 and triplet 4, 5, 6. And it would sound like this. Again. And then we go on, the next beat, the next beat. The next measure is the same as the first measure, rhythmically. So we already know how to count that. Now I want us to look after the repeat sign. Now, we have a couple new rhythms there, but the good thing is, starting after the repeat sign for the next 6 measures, the rhythm is the same. So if we can get the rhythm in one measure, we'll have it for the next 6. So if we look at that high G, that's another dotted eighth, you got it? So it's 1.5 beats. So 1 and 2, and then don't get confused. These next 3 notes aren't a triplet. They're all 16th notes. So it goes 1 and 2 and 3 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and. And that's the first half of the next 6 measures. So it will sound like this. It's just a quarter note followed by an eighth note. So it's 4, 5, 6. And so on and so forth. When we put it all together, it sounds like this. Where we go up to the high D. The high D has a tendency to pop out on us. So I want us all to learn how to do something called half whole. What that means is instead of taking our first finger completely off the clarinet when we're going from side B flat to D, we roll it down to get it halfway off the hole. That gives us a little more resistance for the D and makes the connection smoother. So instead of it sounding potentially like this, where our D comes screaming out, if we half hole it, we'll hopefully get a smoother connection. So we can use that there, and then also we can half hole going from the A to the D in the third to last measure of the piece. So now I'll talk about the real fun part, the high F. So if you're looking at your Rubank book, they have a little star by it, and they're giving us an alternate fingering for how to play the high F. There's a couple different ways to play high F, and the fingering they gave us is nice because of the note we're coming from beforehand. The note before our high F in this piece is a D, right? 4th line D. So we have thumb and register key, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. To get from that D to the high F, all you need to add is the C sharp key. And I know you're probably sitting there thinking, yeah, that doesn't really work because I get something like this. Right. So I can tell you if you're getting those sort of squawks, it's because our tongue is a little too low. So what I suggest when we're going up, when we're shooting for that F, we need to raise our tongue. It needs to be closer to the roof of our mouth. So if you think about talking nasal, talking through your nose, or saying the letter E, 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 your tongue will be higher. The other thing I tell my students is to imagine you're singing the notes. So if you just play D and F in a lower octave, and then sing it up high, it will help put your tongue in a better position for playing the note. So when you practice this, you don't need to practice everything else around it. Just practice getting from the D to the high F. And sometimes you'll get crazy whoops like that, and that's okay. That's why we practice it. As you can tell, it's a little more out of tune of a note, at least on my clarinet. So some people might prefer to play the real fingering for F, which is thumb and register key, 2, 3, C sharp, and our speaker key, our pinky down here. Now what I would suggest, either way, is to practice playing up high. So what you could do is, starting on high C, go C, D, E, F, and back down, E, D, C. And slur it and play it slow. You want to do that a few times every time you practice, so you get used to playing that high so that it's just as easy as all of our low notes. On my clarinet, the real fingering is better in tune, so I would probably opt to play the real fingering for the audition. But what you need to figure out is which fingering is better in tune. The long F, that's what we call it with all of our fingers down, or the real fingering. You want to choose whatever is the most, that you will get the most times, and that is the most in tune. Whichever fingering that is, they won't care, just as long as it's in tune and it comes out. So hopefully this has been helpful, and good luck with all your practicing. Bye!